Hello dear friends, this is a special video. It is about the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. So it is not just one of those videos for the month period. So we will talk about that this year, the year 2025, one of the great conjunctions await us. This is the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, two planets that will meet in the first degree of Aries from the August the 1st to the August 16th. However, as both planets will be retrograde during this first conjunction that is happening this year, we cannot speak of the true conjunction. The true exact conjunction will occur only in February 2026 at the 0 degree of Aries from the 15th to the 22nd of the month. Further, in the year 2026, these two planets will travel together through the sign of Aries, approaching and receding from each other, but almost all the time within 10 degrees of each other. Therefore, through the whole year 2026, we can talk about the conjunction of these two planets. Although it's a quite broad one in 2026 later on, after February. So this means that the entire year 2026 will be marked by this significant conjunction. The conjunction of Saturn and Neptune happens every 36 years. The last one happened in 1989. I have already talked about that in my annual video for the year 2025. The name of the video is A Turn Point in Globalistic Politics or something like that. I also mentioned this conjunction in my video for the May 2025, and there will be a short video also, like the glimpse, the extract from the big yearly video. So you can learn more through these other videos that will be on YouTube. So mundane astrology follows mainly 10 cycles of major planets, and the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune is one of them. Whenever the big planets make a conjunction, that is when they meet at the same degree of one sign, significant changes occur in the life of the collective and the new pattern is created, which then has its own phases, some tense, some harmonious, until the next conjunction happens. This great conjunction has its own themes, which are further modified according to the astrological sign in which they occur. So now we have it in Aries. It will be important that it's in Aries, not in any other sign. It is now interesting for us that Saturn and Neptune meet in Aries during this summer, and that after, summer 25, and that after that both planets return to the sign of Pisces to settle permanently in Aries later from the year 2026. From 2027, Saturn and Neptune will be separate, although they will remain in the same sign. Saturn will remain in Aries until April 14, 2028, and almost its entire transit through the sign of Aries will be marked by the conjunction of Neptune. Although they will be separate quite a lot in 2027, and maybe you know that in Jyotish, if two planets are in the same sign, then consider it as a conjunction. Doesn't matter how far they are from each other. But they do not take in consideration these trans-Saturnian planets. But anyway, it can be understood like that. So I was going to prepare the video for this Saturn in Aries, but actually, I will see, most probably I will record it, but basically the story is the same as I'm saying now about this conjunction. So conditionally speaking, the energies of these two planets are not compatible. Saturn is reality, Neptune is idealism. And the sign where they meet, Aries sign, is the sign of action. So in this combination, Neptune leads. So Saturn is not only in decline in the sign of Aries, or in its fall, as they say, but cannot overpower Neptune. Neptune has power over him. Saturn creates order, creates new structures, and determines the rules in the sign of Aries. These rules can be about warfare, military organization, maybe sport, or maybe leadership, whatever that means. However, Neptune will not allow Saturn to bring order in these areas, like warfare and this what we said, because Neptune undermines the rules, even creates disorder, brings disorientation and illusion. This does not mean that there will not be attempts to establish new rules, and that some attempts will not be realized, but in principle it can be very chaotic. However, Saturn will be retrograde in Aries from the 13th of July this year until the 1st of September in the year 2025. And then from July 27 to December 11th in the year 2026. And also will be retrograde from August the 10th to December 24 in the year 2027. And this will be a very significant time when Saturn will give good results. So what are good results when this is happening in the sign of Aries? Well, in the first place, it can be that demilitarization and ending of conflicts and wars that we need more than anything now. And why is it so when it's retrograde? Well, according to Indian astrology, retrograde Saturn in Aries gives good results and has a kind of energy as when Saturn is exalted in Libra in the opposite sign. This is one of the secrets that Jyotish has and which this Western astrology does not know. Although we say that Saturn and Neptune are not compatible, we know from history that they can bring certain things. Even if they are not compatible, they have influence on us, yeah? So namely, one version of the story is that they represent the desire to realize high ideals, Neptune ideals, and Saturn wants to bring them into realization. Astrologers have often said that this is a combination that arose during socialism and so-called communism, when many believed that the equality in the world is possible and the welfare for all, regardless of status, on castes or things like that. And then this story has two possible then continuations. One is that high ideals are really realized and that society manages to create a better life for everybody. This is one version. And the other version is great defeat due to unrealistic goals and plans that were only imagination. Of course, it is possible that one part of the world gets a better version and the other part gets a worse version, as usually is so. That was in the previous century, definitely, and usually it happens like that. But we will see. So whose dreams can fail now? Well, for example, let's say Zionists groups can now lose the war, because they were carried away with this idea, of some idealistic, even religious war, that can bring them to rule over the world. They were almost there, but it can bring now big fail. We will see. The conjunction of Saturn and Neptune is especially important for Russia. Namely, it appeared in history when this country was passing through important phases. For example, in 2017, at the time of the revolution, although at the same time there was opposition of Saturn and Uranus, which means revolution. Then also further appeared in the year 1953, in the time when Stalin dies, and then the Soviet politics had a significant turn after his death. Also, this conjunction appeared in the year 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell and when the Soviet Union was decomposed. In the same year, 1989, Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan. It is significant to say that in 1989, Saturn and Neptune were in Capricorn, and they were in stellium with the planet Uranus. And Capricorn is the sign of political and ruling structures. So, in the political sense, and in the context of this highest power that governs the world, that year was the turning point and the attempt to create new structures, new political also, new eras, political eras, the space of certain influences in the world and new structures within them. But let me tell you that in the 2020 we had 3 great conjunctions in the sign of Capricorn, which also mark a turning point in the political and ruling sense of the world. And now 5 or 6 years later, we have a conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, which says that new plans are ready for some sort of a better world, like that vision is saying that. But we don't know what that means, actually, better world. We will see. It can be for somebody better, for some not. But things are not going easy. We know that until 2027, everything goes very slowly. Nevertheless, in 2025 and 2026, we can expect the withdrawal of NATO troops from Ukraine, as Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan in 1989. The aspect between Neptune and Saturn can affect the end of the war in the Middle East also, but there are also some other details should be analyzed. Certainly some kind of demilitarization is coming in the coming years, and the vision of better world is emerging. But what is the problem? The problem is what kind of a better world, because for somebody better world can be with robots. Like robots will serve you, but you will not be free. This could be some better version for somebody. So the current conjunction is happening at the first degrees of Aries, and it's very significant because of that, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So we can say that great conjunctions has a great beginning. It is when they happen in Aries, and then they go through all 12 signs of the zodiac until return to Aries sign. So this is a special time indeed. When Neptune was in Pisces from 2011 to 2026, everything was toned down, slowed down, and hidden. By the way, Neptune in Pisces in its strongest possible position. Neptune rules in Pisces. So a hidden chemically, biological, and informational war was waged against all of humanity. But somehow everything was moderated, otherwise the victims would have been immeasurable. Neptune represents that biological and digital warfare itself, but also salvation. I know that it sounds absurd, but it's so. You can find out about this ambivalence of Neptune in other my videos. Longer or shorter, you just write Neptune in Pisces, my name, and then you will see it. I'm not going to repeat all that now. So now that Neptune enters the sign of Aries, it will no longer be in a strong position, but even in the sign of Aries, it can indicate again secret action, secret wars, and also a new way of saving people. Of course, with this position now comes a new idealization of the new way of life. And this is what we said, it can be robotic life. And not good for us because it can annihilate us completely as a human being. This is the danger of this transit. But Neptune's strength in Aries is somehow reduced. Let's also pay attention to the fact that Neptune and Saturn are together in a wider and narrower conjunction through 2025 and 26, although they move from the sign of Pisces to Aries and backwards. So they're going here and there, but they're all the time together. All the time is happening that Saturn wants to create rules and Neptune destroys them. When Neptune is, everything happens massively. We saw how the so-called rulers of the world created mass hysteria in the previous year, especially in 2020. And then Neptune was in quite strong position in Pisces, indeed. However, when Neptune enters Aries, also can be mass reaction from massive happenings, but this can be a mass reaction from the side of individuals. Namely, Aries is the sign of a man as an individual, a symbol of human identity and a human will and courage. We are already seeing mass demonstrations by students and citizens in Serbia, which have now wanted to, which are now existing for several months, and which are accompanied by the blockages of schools and universities. It is quite possible that this will spread to other countries on Balkans, maybe other Slavic countries. And yes, that is possible always when Neptune is in Aries, because that position can significantly influence individuals to react and to rebel. Because Aries is individual, Neptune is the mass. And when we have many engaged individuals, then we have massive transformation. Let's also not fool ourselves that someone else will save us from the future jabs and digital terror and digital identity and digital money. Of course, there are people who are fighting for us, who want to save us from this, but we as individuals have to do that what is necessarily. With Saturn and Neptune in Aries, each individual needs to show his will and say what he wants and what he doesn't want. Of course, in the future, a lot of things will be digitalized. We can't avoid that. We went too far into digitalization. But we can accept certain aspects of this digitalization, and only if we are protected. And the trouble with this digital identity is that it's actually, the idea of that is the total control of our health, movement, purchasing power, and everything else. This current attempt to establish digital identity is presented to people as a protection and help and similar ridiculous things. But in fact, this is the destruction for the human. Neptune is very important in that digitalization process because it represents artificial intelligence and this intangible modern technology, which often refers to itself as meta. And meta phenomenon has always been of Neptunian type. And before we were talking about meta phenomenons within the frame of philosophy or theology, but now it appeared in technology. So since the sign of Aries is a symbol of our identity, Saturn in this sign can mean some new strange identity that comes in a very unnatural way. Neptune can make that this project falls, because he can destroy these Saturn structures. But unfortunately, Neptune also can mean that many individuals are enslavement by this new technology and this digital identity. There is also a possibility that this combination can mean that individuals are fighting against this strange new project that they have for us. Neptune was once most described as the god of mystical experience, trance, inspiration, contact with a higher dimension of being. In Hinduism, Neptune is Vishnu, and he is a spiritual warrior. It is similarly understood in other countries, and generally it has great power. In ancient times, he was also known as the earthquake god, and also was a god who was violent and fickle, had very fickle temper, and the same were the beings who were following him all the time, and he was ruling them. He was feared and respected by the most sailors and inhabitants of the sea regions, especially in the ancient time, as he was Poseidon in that time in Roman Empire Neptune. So Neptune in Aries can symbolize a spiritual or religious war also, and great earthquakes on earth, real or spiritual also. But together with Saturn, also it can represent the force that can stop it all. This is these two sides of the same coin. However, that same Neptune nowadays changes as no longer represents this spiritual, divine guidance, but it is transformed into invisible power of management by the means of artificial intelligence. It represents invisible management by computers, satellites, 5G antennas, and so on. There are thin connections between man and the universe that are not in the human brain. Nikola Tesla wrote that the brain is not an accumulator of knowledge. He said, our minds are empty. And the brain only has the ability to react. And what does he react to? So far, our brain was reacting to the impulses from the cosmos, or one would say reacted to divine impulses. But the new plan is to further react to the impulses given by the artificial technology, by the technology. Let's remember that thousands of satellites were placed around our planet while we were kept locked in our houses, and we've been told that we are in danger of pandemic, you know? So like any other energy, the energy of Neptune and Saturn in Aries can flow into two opposite directions. It can mean a secret war against man in a new way, not like before, but it can also mean the beginning of a new spiritual war waged by brave individuals for liberation from the slavery of modern technology, which appears as a new god, this modern technology, as a new god and new secular religion. So many people will fight against this. We can expect whole rebellions in the world that will be destroying antennas and similar objects, and we already see that this is happening in England, but many are not talking about that. We also saw what a blackout looks like. It happened in France and other countries in the south of Europe. So if something like that happened and everybody has only digital money and digital identity and there is no power, then after that they're nobody, you know. And now we saw when there was blackout, people who had only payment cards, they did not have cash, they could not buy even food, what to say about other things. So it's quite clear where one path of digitalization leads. With this conjunction can come a new social system also, and most probably it will. Some new way of earning money, of paying pensions, some new socialism, as we said a few times. But when we say socialism, don't think of that old socialism from the last century, because this new one will be tightly connected with modern technology. So this new socialism will be, on the first side, something like that can be good for everyone. Everyone can give freedom to everybody, like there would be no big differences between classes and castes. And this is one possibility, and the question is just how that will happen, you know, for good or for bad for us as the human beings. We have seen from 2020 onwards, and especially that year, that they prepared for us digital fascism. And it looks that this project failed. For now it looks so. And now somebody would say, well, with this conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, what you are describing here, Tatjana, this can be like a new communism, digital communism. And if you think so, yes, that is really possible. And it seems that we don't have some very bright future, but of course, all of this can fail, you know, these are their plans, and I believe because of some other aspects that this will not happen, that we can be optimistic, but we have to mention what is possible. Fortunately, many people are helping to stop these projects, this bad version of them. Neptune and Saturn enter Aries from Pisces and exchange place with the North Lunar Node, who is coming from Aries into Pisces. So we see that it's very, very active here, the energy of Pisces in one way or another, and Neptune. And where they are, then the theme of healing is open also. So we see that jobs scam are being discovered in America by Robert Kennedy, and he is doing very well his job. Unfortunately, a little is being said about that in medias. And the transit of Saturn and Neptune through the sign of Aries will certainly enable this dismantling of the frauds that have occurred since 2020 and in that year. And let's also hope that this transit can help in providing like a medical cure for those who got jabs and who were injured in a way. I heard recently that many people are dying in China. Of course, media is also not talking about that, and I will leave you to think about it, what they are dying of. With the transit of Neptune through the sign of Aries, the possibility of a new way of treatment, medical treatment, is generally now open. Perhaps there is going to be a breaking of the previous medical rules and protocols that were signed by the governments of many countries. You know what I mean here. Let's not forget that all events in Aries are in dialogue with Libra. So Aries is war, Libra peace. Aries conflict, Libra diplomacy. Aries uniqueness and individuality, Libra partnership and cooperation. So the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in Aries will be in confrontation with the themes of Libra, or sometimes in dialogue with them. In the coming years, major planets will make these positive aspects, and this is something that gives us positive vision of future. So what could be that positive vision? Pluto in Aquarius brings new social system and new scientific paradigm. Uranus in Gemini brings futuristic aircrafts and new transport system, these flying cars and everything else that is already prepared in China, because China is supposed to be that country where that should come from. Not that they are clever more than others, but it is given to them. And also Neptune in Aries brings demilitarization and new identity, hopefully not the digital one. So all in all, door to the future is open, and we can enter soon into some sci-fi world, science fiction, yeah? So let's hope that in that world there will be place for a human being as a normal human being, and then we would be fine. In personal lives, the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune brings great hopes, but potentially great disappointments. For someone, fulfillment of life wishes. For some, a clear picture of the fact that many wishes were just imagination or illusion, which have no meaning. In order to determine where this conjunction is in your horoscope, you need to know which part of your horoscope is symbolized by Aries sign, and I will say something about that now. So in that era of your life, you can create your own little paradise, or maybe you will experience disappointment. If that later happens, this disappointment, be honest with yourself and others. Because if you were to lie to yourself, you would pay later during the square of Saturn and Neptune, which will occur in less than 9 years, more precisely in 2034. For Aries, it is the era of profession and life path. For Taurus, this is the era of unconscious. It is happening, this conjunction, in the 12th house. For Gemini, this is in the 11th house, which is the house of cooperation with others and friends. For the Crab or Cancer sign, this is happening in the 10th house, which is important cardinal house, which can bring success, new status, or maybe disappointment about that. Leo people will have this in the 9th house, which is the house of study, living abroad, religion, and faith. Virgos will experience this conjunction in the 8th house, which is the family inheritance, sexuality, and secrets, even secretive transformations. Libras will have this in the 7th house, which is the cardinal house. So very important for partnership, marriage, and for all kind of relations. Scorpios will have this in the 6th house, which is the house of daily routine, exercises, food, and so. Health also. For Sagittarius, this is the era of children, creativity, and short-term investments, the 5th house. And be very careful here with these small investments, especially if you play with money, because it can give a lot and take also everything, potentially. For Capricorn, this is the era of home and family. It is happening in the 4th house, which is very also important cardinal house. Aquarians will have this in the 3rd house, the place of communication and close relatives. And Pisces will have this in the 2nd house, which is the place of personal money and talents, where we also discover our value and our values, not value of ourselves, but what we value also. So the following questions now that I will tell you will help you to use this energy in your life. Let's remember Gurdjieff, great mystic, who believed that the best method of gaining self-knowledge is by self-observation. Observe yourself by asking yourself the following questions. What dreams of yours would you like to realize in the coming years? Are your aspirations in contact with the reality or not? Which plans turned out to be wrong? Are you confronted with a new condition? And if so, which one? Which wishes are easily fulfilled in this period? So you see, it is quite possible that many of us will be disappointed with something that we expected, but actually something else will happen that we did not really expect, and it can be like nice and easy. So that is all for now that I prepared for you about this conjunction. All of the links and contacts will be under this video on YouTube. You can feel free to schedule personal consultations with me based on astropsychology, spiritual astrology, maybe Feng Shui, and based on the method that I use and I call the change of the code, the change of the perception, where we work with our conscious and even subconscious programs and change them. If you like the video, like it, sign up to my channel, and thank you very, very much for that in advance. I wish you strength, positive visions, and luck with this transit. And see you soon.